Hi everyone, Aaron and Donny here. This is episode number 3 of Not a Car podcast. Our guest today is Eddie Kendrick. Just a quick little introduction about Eddie. Eddie's a counsellor, qualified yoga teacher. He has a certificate in Zen Shiatsu Massage Therapy. He also owns Repub Care. He qualified in yoga teacher training in Nepal Yoga Academy. He also traveled to Goa where he got a certificate in Shiatsu Massage Therapy. Eddie also completed over 500 hours of intensive meditation practice in the Buddhist meditation technique of Vipassana. Is that correct?
Close enough.
Eddie also has a wealth of experience of working with those at various stages of cancer and the families of those with cancer diagnosis. Furthermore, Eddie was born and bred into a pub environment, giving him an extensive knowledge of the effects of alcohol on the individual and their families. This knowledge allowed Eddie to explore the different facets of addiction to substances, behaviours such as alcohol, phone addiction, drugs, gambling, and porn. Welcome, Eddie, and thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Eddie.
Thanks very much for the introduction.
And also, congrats on the recent win. Junior B hurling captain. You won the South Championship last week.
Thank you. One of my proudest moments.
Did you give it a good rattle afterwards?
Yeah, good night, good evening, good week. Unfortunately, couldn't continue it out and win the county final, but it was still a nice change to be in a hurling care jersey and winning games.
Yeah, I was actually there for the final. It was a great care crowd there, and just a bit disappointing you couldn't win the county now. But I heard you gave a good account of yourselves last Saturday.
I did.
How long do celebrations go on for?
Just winded up there yesterday morning.
Oh wow, when was the game?
Forced wind up.
Yeah, I actually missed the celebrations, but I went out Sunday for a couple of pints, and the cup was still there.
Nice.
The cup got a good run. It was all COVID friendly, though. It's COVID friendly cup.
Cahir is a small enough town, but the cup was outside the castle, outside most pubs in Cahir.
Nice.
Outside the big fish down the Inchfield.
Yeah, so they gave it a good shot.
A good welling. No, well deserved. Eddie, no, listen, thanks for jumping on the podcast. Look, I suppose our first couple of podcasts was obviously the two of us jumped on the first one, then we had Darren on the second one talking about his career and stuff. And look, from chatting with Aaron and like basically what you've done over the last number of years is something I would say not many people will ever get to do in their lives. And I think even just for chatting with Aaron today, he mentioned that you were on a retreat recently up in Galway, if I'm right.
But it was the Clare, was it?
Clare Galway, which is in County Galway, yeah.
Oh, nice. And from what he's telling me, it sounds like something that everyone kind of really needs to do once in their life, just to maybe just recharge, reset, kind of focus on what's important. And yeah, tell us a bit about that. How was it?
Yeah, I'd agree with you there. Yeah, it's insight meditation. Essentially, it's from a technique of meditation and mindfulness are getting a big kind of push the past 10, 15 years, I suppose. Even in Ireland, it's kind of been pushed along with yoga and stuff. And essentially what it is, it's say I've done a technique in the past, which Aaron ruined there and how he said it, but not too bad. Vipassana, which is a technique of 10 days meditation, which is based on what the Buddha taught 2,500 years ago. So essentially, it's silent meditation. You have no phones, no books. You're not supposed to write. You don't give eye contact. You don't talk unless you have questions. You eat at assigned times. There's no, it's vegetarian, so there's no killing. You can't kill a fly or anything like that. There's no sexual acts, like masturbation or anything like that. You're normally in a room on your own, and then you meditate in a hall. It can be up to 9 to 10 hours a day between meditation and kind of discourses, which is talks, and it usually goes on for 10 days. Wow. So I've done 4 of those between India, Nepal, America, and Amsterdam, or Holland, not Amsterdam. But the most recent one I did was in a different tradition. It was the still Buddhist tradition, but it was in Theravada tradition, which is the Thai forest monk tradition, and it was done by a lay person. He's not he's not a monk at all. He's a layman, so just a regular man as a partner and things like that. but he was very much invested in the creation of a few Buddhist monasteries in the UK. And yeah, it was just like I haven't had one in 2 years, and normally the kind of go of it since I've started doing it and like started reaping the benefits was I try and do one every year, but with lockdown, it's been 2 years since I actually done one. So this latest one was different in tradition, and I didn't know what to expect, but it was absolutely fantastic. Yeah, it was just, I don't know how I can't put it into words how powerful and humbling and life-changing, even in the short space of time since I've done it. It has been, yeah, and I do.
Can you paint a picture of like, see, when you used to explain these trips to me, I just thought you're in a room for 9 hours a day, just meditating. But like, can you paint a picture for me, like when you arrive, what actually happens?
Okay, yeah, I'll do my best. So when you arrive, you arrive at about 6 in the evening. With the one I've just done, I'll describe that one because I think for people in Ireland, it's actually something that everyone in Ireland can attain to do, because Nick Scott is the teacher's name. He is doing Sunyata. Sunyata is the name of the organization, sunyata.org, I think, but Sunyata Clare, just type that in if people are looking for it in Google. They do 10-day meditation retreats, residential, with the teacher called Nick Scott. And so, yeah, essentially you arrive on a Friday, you have soup, sandwich, check in, put in your name, you're told which room you're in, you bring in your stuff, what you're supposed to bring. You obviously bring your clothes, you're told to bring a jacket in case it rains, a few pairs of shoes because there's kind of a forest where the retreat is held, toothpaste, shower gel, shampoo, bar of soap. I brought some paper to write on, as I was allowed writing this time. Normally I haven't been allowed write, but I did write a lot during this retreat. Then you hand in your phone. And then that night you're just kind of meeting everybody. You're talking to different people who are there. You know, you're saying, how'd you end up here? Blah, blah, blah. And it was kind of strange as well this time because everyone had their masks on because of COVID. And it was like, you know, you weren't allowed to sit beside each other. There was kind of a spaces between where everyone was. So like, you were seeing everybody, but you hadn't actually seen anybody yet. So like, it's strange when you see people with masks on for so long. Then when they take it off, it's not the face you're expecting because you don't know what to expect. And then it's just a different face, which is kind of very strange. So then, yeah, that evening it starts. We go in and the teacher talks. He gives a bit of a lowdown on what we're going to be doing. He doesn't have any paper in front of him. He's not going from a script. It's just kind of the idea is like what comes to him is kind of what's given out to us based on the kind of the framework of how Buddhist thought or philosophy should be taught. And he sticks to that kind of frame, which he would know from doing so many retreats before and from his own experiences. But then what he says is just pretty much what's coming in the moment, and what's coming based on the group. So then that's your first night. So then you go in, you're very tired for the first couple of days because you're kind of world weary. You know, you have the heaviness of the world, of being out in the world, of kind of trying to impress people or trying to talk with people, your job, your family, your life, your outside activities, whether it's sport at the moment, obviously COVID and just the heaviness of that, media and the heaviness of that, social media and the heaviness of that, our phones and the heaviness of that, financial burdens, everything else. So that's just kind of put aside, and you're at like you just feel shattered, very tired for the first night. Yeah, you're supposed to get up early in the morning, like 7 to start your meditation, and it was very gentle in how it was taught. It was very much not as strict as the other retreats I'd done. It was more, you know, kind of more based on like how you are in this moment rather than something be done onto you. It was kind of an organic kind of what is feeling right for you at that moment in time. And that's kind of how the retreat progressed for myself. So it wasn't just sitting for 9 hours a day. There was walk and meditation. You have your lunch. You can go for a walk or jog. There's a beautiful forest there, absolutely stunning forest. So you're just looking at the forest. There's a big field of cows right beside us. So you're just watching the cows. Like, you know, if you'd ever looked at a field of cows, which I hadn't in a long time, there's so much entertainment. And a lot of people got that. You just see people watching because the cows were just doing their thing. They were coming over to us. And then, yeah, for myself, you're eating. And then for myself, I was doing a good bit of writing at different times as well. Whenever I got spare time, just kind of the ideas that were coming and what was being said and just kind of stuff that I felt was important. I would jot stuff down. But yeah, the idea is you're not supposed to talk to anyone we all had chores to do because it's a volunteer run thing. So there was a person who was coming up from Limerick just to cook for us. He was a former monk in England, and he was just coming up to cook for us. Guy played soccer with DDSL Dublin, Kennedy Cup years and all that, and that was kind of found solace in Buddhism. But he was just volunteering to come up like once or twice a day to cook for us from Limerick, which is an hour spin. And then we all had our chores to do, whether it was like washing the dishes or sweeping the floor, whatever. It wouldn't take that long, because the main focus is to be kind of in yourself. Because when in our life, like literally every moment now, the modern world is like spent. We're all trying to get away from our moments. So like you have the phone, we're looking at phone, just looking at crap. There's no need for anything stuff. Like, social media is like, most people have seen the social dilemma at this stage. So the modern world is created to give you that dopamine hit all the time, which isn't actually a good thing. It's quite terrible in reality, but our brains have been hijacked by business. So when you're in a retreat, you get to reclaim part of your natural way, I suppose. You finally get some rest. You kind of realize you have nothing to grab anymore. You can't like go to your phone to distract yourself. You can't go to a book. You're kind of in your own mind, and it actually gives your mind a chance to allow stuff to float and come in that has wanted to be seen for some time. And and that's what a lot of therapy work is. It's just things that are coming to somebody's mind that they haven't allowed to come, or they don't know how to work with it. Or even like what's something I saw through myself at the start of lockdown last year, after the first 3 or 4 weeks, and I think a lot of people had the same experience. It's like we're all busy. Lockdown comes, bang, 3 weeks. Oh, great! It's great to be free. And then like I'm not doing anything. All this stuff comes up from my past, from my present, from what am I doing with my life, and it can be quite dark for people. It can be quite dark because like it's this stuff that we haven't looked at before, but it's so important to look at it, because more like I think a lot of people will, until the day they die, they never look at that stuff. And that stuff that just simply wants to be seen, which wants to be put to bed, which wants to be looked at, which actually needs to be looked at. And when we don't, it's what causes our mental issues. It's what causes our neurotic behaviors. It's what causes our addictions. It's what causes, I suppose, our ill will, or ill sentiment, or our ill thoughts, or our ill ways that we know we don't want, but that just kind of come as a reactive process. And during a retreat, you essentially can't run from that stuff anymore. You can't go on your phone. You can't read a book. You can't just float around on Instagram. You can't go off with the lads having a pint. You can't go for a run anytime you want. You're actually made to sit with that thing that's very uncomfortable. And that sounds terrifying for a lot of people, and it is. And that's why a lot of people don't go for help in therapy. That's why a lot of people don't look to solve their issues. They prefer to just kind of keep it at bay, drink or whatever, and keep it down, because it's so painful. And it can be painful, but to truly be free of many of these things, you kind of have to allow them to float to begin to mend.
Wow. Yeah, I think that to sum that up is just wow. Yeah, that is a pretty picture of kind of what you've done over the last 10 days. I just kind of asking, like, you're going to a retreat like this, Eddie. Are you going there with kind of a vision of what you want to get out of it? Are you going completely open-minded, or is there an element of both, or what way do you kind of go into it?
Misery has got me to do all these things essentially, and misery has got me into being in the path of what I'm doing, and it's been my own misery and I've made my own misery in my own life. I can really blame nobody except myself. But like, say 4 or 5, 6 years ago, when I did my trips to India and stuff, and I did my shiatsu, as Aaron was saying, and then like the teacher we had was saying, go do one of these Vipassana things. So I did that, and this massive experience, what I would say life changing or whatever. And then like I went and did this kind of introduction to Buddhism course, and then afterwards there was people who had done the retreat and they were meeting and talking in cafes and stuff. And I was so anxious, I couldn't go in and say, well, how are we getting on? I just felt so anxious, which was just really, I was just so self-centered in my thinking. It's like, oh, will they like me? Will they like me? And I literally ran from there and did another one of those 10-day retreats.
Wow.
Which was insanity. You know what, like, it's hilarious looking back, but like, that's what I did at that time. Like, I was just like, this was going to fix me. This was going to fix me. And that's how I start. Like, at the first one, obviously, that, you know, there was no fixing. It's not going to fix anything. It's just a different way of insight. And then the second one, I was like, I want this experience back again. I was trying to run from like feeling uncomfortable, thinking that this would fix me. So that was like 5 or 6 years ago. So that was very different than my latest one, where it was just kind of like, I know I need this. I'm going to allow, like, I was going to therapy with a great therapist down in Cork. I had a few sessions with her before I went. And we're kind of looking at the shadow aspect of myself, which would be kind of more or less the things that you don't want to look at, which is essentially, yeah, your shadow is like this thing which is following you because you don't want to look at it. And then eventually when you look at it, it loses its grip or loses meaning or loses its strength and hold over you. So there was kind of things we had looked at leading into it, but I just kind of allowed it to happen. And that served me very well, I think, because I had experiences that really allowed me to kind of come to terms with different parts of myself that I had kind of pushed down, repressed, wouldn't look at, literally since I was 12. I could remember one from when I was 12 that came up. And then when you actually look at it, it starts peeling like an onion. Like the layer comes off, a layer comes off, a layer comes off, and then you can see, okay, this is why I was doing this action back then. And I come to terms with it.
Yeah, like that was like on the retreats, you've done a few of them. Like, is the first, like on the second and third retreats, you probably get better at doing them, if you know what I mean? Like when you see your problem there with the onion peeling, like on your first retreat, were you able to get into that mind frame? Or did it take a couple of retreats to kind of get into that mind frame and deal with that problem?
Yeah, I took a few retreats to get into that thing that I went into in my last retreat. Like essentially, it's like our minds are so busy. If you try and sit and meditate, it's meditation. So you try and sit and meditate for 5-10 minutes. So I think people have a really incorrect way of looking at what meditation is. So if you can just sit with yourself for 5 minutes, try and sit and concentrate on one object for 5 minutes, which is your breath, your mind, a specific noise. You'll realize how difficult that is quite quickly, because your mind will just be going like a little pinball in the machine. It just goes and it's going everywhere. So it's very hard to actually settle ourselves. So when all that kind of noise is going on, like that could be the first 2 or 3 days of your retreat. Just trying to allow that noise to settle, because every day we have more stuff, we have more things, we have more people calling us, you have more things to do, you have something coupled on the media, you have a news article. So it's all just around your head. And it's very hard to actually be still in it just with yourself. But then what happens, I suppose, through a retreat, or even just through people who actually do meditation a lot, is that your mind does begin to settle after 3 or 4 days. You know, you get focused. So there's like a level of focus, but also a level of quietness. You can be with nature without kind of thinking about it, just being with it and enjoying it. And then that gives yourself a space. And yeah, as you said, Aaron, it could be 2 or 3 retreats, or it could be 1 retreat. Like there's no number, there's no this is how it's going to work out for you. It's totally dependent on the person, and there's no right or wrong time for change or anything to happen, but there absolutely should be benefits to it, no matter if it's 1, 2, or your 50th retreat. There should be benefits directly from them. And again, after 3 or 4 days, your mind starts to quieten. So then, just like I just explained my experience of this thing coming up from when I was 12, if like in the first 3 days, that isn't going to come up because your head is just like for me. But then in the 4th or 5th day, when I'm quiet, then like things come in that are like, whoa, I haven't seen that in ages. And it's like, whoa, well, okay, why is that there? And then you kind of look into it. Whereas like just regular crap that's going through my head is like, oh, did I turn the lights on? Did I leave the lights off? Did I brush my teeth? This stuff, you know, that's irrelevant. But something that's coming up from like when I was 12, I'm like, okay, hold on, I'm going to look at this for a minute. And then it'll just start, then you look at it with like, generally with love and care and not like disgust. You can start looking at it with more care for who you are, what you did in your past, and then it kind of becomes like a block of ice, which is kind of what our teacher says, like a block of ice with the sun hitting it, gradually melting away the kind of coarseness and harshness of it, and that kind of comes through looking at it with love and care and compassion. So it can take time. It can take, like, it definitely took me until that retreat to actually treat some of my past actions, thoughts, or deeds with love and not with hate, because hate really can't cure anything. We can't cure anything. Only actually looking at it with empathy, with compassion and love and care for yourself can change and alter your relationship with these things.
Eddie, I suppose, look, the biggest thing over the last, 24 months has been COVID. As you said, everyone was kind of go until there was that period there of 3 weeks where you just had nothing to do, nothing to worry about. There's a lot of people, I suppose, look, that'll be either watching or listening that are either getting back into the office or getting back meeting their friends. And even just from chatting to people that I know, there's definitely this anxiety of meeting people again. And, you know, like some people I don't want to go, I do want to meet you, but there's always that fear of COVID. Like you're working in care and stuff. Like, would you have many people that are coming to you since COVID kicked off with these kind of problems? Or, you know, is there anything that you can kind of small little tips, or is there any sort of way that you can, in a really short space of time, help our listeners to deal with that kind of COVID anxiety, as want of a better word?
Yeah, like, say, do you mean actually the anxiety of COVID and the disease, or just do you think or is it double barreled in that there's that and also,
I'd say,
like, having not met people in so long, it's kind of like, oh crap, how do I do social life again?
Or well, any anxiety at all, anyone that's suffering, like
Yeah.
What would you advise them to do?
Okay, yeah, well,
there's no quick fix.
There's no quick fix, but I actually have a different take on anxiety, and I think some people might find it harsh or difficult to hear, but it's like, anxiety is obviously real, but people think anxiety is a bad thing. There's a book I have in my office. It's like How to Heal from Anxiety. And I think that's a horrendous way of looking at it. It's like, we all need anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have anxiety or our human species would be extinct. So quite literally, anxiety stopped us getting devoured by wolves, getting killed by bears in years gone by. But now we're in a modern world where we don't have those same fears. So it's a bit like having Windows 95 in a 2021 computer.
Perfect.
So we're still in Windows 95 and it's the 21st century, and like there's no real fear of death all the time upon us. So anxiety in the past was kind of to protect us, that we wouldn't be kicked out of the group, so that we'd be protected and in the group and hunter-gatherer. Whereas now we still have this fear. It's the same, like anxiety is like, you hear a bang, what do? You cover your vital organs straight away. It's just instinctive. So I think part of it is actually realizing that anxiety is so normal, that the problem actually becomes a problem when we're told, oh, anxiety is bad, you need to heal yourself from anxiety. Like, what's the difference between I have anxiety before a game or I have butterflies before a game?
Yeah.
We all have butterflies before a game. We all have anxiety. It's just the way we label it. Fear and anxiety are the same physiological response. Butterflies is the same physiological response. It's just how we label it. Oh, I shouldn't feel this way. Why not? Like, you go into a social, you go on a date. Everyone should be anxious before a date. It's like, oh, I'm trying to impress. It's not like, it's natural. Mm-hmm. It's not a thing that should be seen as bad. It's like, yeah, if it's becoming crippling and like you can't leave your house, that's a different thing. And that's where people need to go seek help, or like actually start pushing outside their boundaries a bit instead of just staying in their comfort zone. Like I'd say, like, yeah, as my 2 tips would be, anxiety is normal. It's okay to have anxiety. I think it's the language of, oh, it's bad, and I think that's actually created by the wellness industry. It's making it like, oh, you shouldn't have anxiety, so buy my program and go on my 5-week course and you'll be free of anxiety. A load of crap. Yeah. And I do think that's business. Whereas on the other side, if it is crippling, yeah, go seek help. Or even if you're trying to manage it, as in, like, don't be stuck on your phone all day. Yeah. Don't be reading. Don't be looking at a screen all day. Get into nature. Play sports. Get involved with people. Go do music. Go dance. Get out of your comfort zone. Act the fool. Be a child. We have to embrace that inner child in us. We have to have fun. Look at water. Look at nature. Try and be present. Learn to meditate is absolutely a tip I would have for people. But like nature, people, and meditation, I think those 3 things, if you can do them at some level during your day, your anxiety will naturally begin to diminish. But if you're just stuck inside, looking at screens, looking at why my life isn't the way XYZ is over in LA or something like that, like naturally you're going to have more frustration, anxiety, or pent up kind of energy than if it's being released.
Yeah, you're bang on with the like I was looking at books today, and the amount of anxiety books out there at the moment is just crazy. Like like they're cashing on it. Like
I think there's an element to that.
Yeah.
Eddie, I suppose, like, look, what would be the first step for someone listening today? Like, are you doing one-on-one? Are you doing online? What kind of way have you been working recently? Are you completely back open? And how could someone book in with you for a consultation or a session or something like that?
Yeah. So at the moment, I have started. Like, I started my own practice in February. So I am taking on one-to-ones, and I do online. I prefer in person, but if people are in different areas or they're nervous of COVID, that's absolutely fine. I can do online. But I am still taking. I have gone a bit quieter recently because, I think it's such a paradox. I'm a counsellor who runs a pub, so it's definitely a different vantage point than most people will get, and that's just because it's my family's pub, and they're both in their 70s, and with COVID and everything, so it's I'm there for the moment. I don't plan to be there forever, but I am still counselling, and it's a funny one juggling the two. It really is a different vantage point, but you can come meet me in the bar. And
you can have your session with a pint.
The pool table is gone though, so it's no pool.
Go out the back and have a pint. No, that is not my advice.
Yeah.
You can catch me. I have a website which is ekcounselling.ie. I have an Instagram which I haven't been very. I'm not very active on it. I do plan to be more active on it in the future, but for the time being, I'm not. And I will, like, as the summer goes on or as it finishes out, I plan to be more active on that and to give more advice or just to give more articles and more my thought on it. But ekcounselling.ie is one. If you want to email me, it's info@ekcounselling.ie. And on the website, there's links to my Instagram, which is ekcounselling, I think. I'm not 100% sure off the top of my head.
Eddie was laid to table with social media.
And I'm very much I'm an anti-social media with many years, but I've been kind of forced onto it now this year.
But to be honest, like with Instagram, like people do that maybe suffer with anxiety or like depression. Like there is some good things on Instagram. People,
there is absolutely. It's just finding that balance between abusing it and using it, between needing it and wanting it. Because like real life is so much more rewarding when you just allow yourself to
be in the moment,
be enfolded by it. Like just going out and looking at a tree is insanely. We just don't look at the things that we can at every moment. Like just give us that chance of being re-enchanted or reconnected to life at any given moment. And I think as the modern world has kind of got dull to a bit of that. But that's what I would recommend, like meditation retreats. they really help you get back into that. They really, really help you to immerse yourself back into life. And again, they're not for everybody. Some people, they can't do it. So it's like, you know, when you're going to these retreats, there is a form that you fill out and you say, okay, this is what I am, this is who I am, this is what I have going on. And like, there'll be kind of a, you know, they'll look and they'll have a chat with you if they don't feel it's right for you at that moment in time. That's not to say it's not right for you forever, but yeah.
Look, I suppose one piece of advice for someone listening today who obviously, I don't know, there's a lot of people out there who wouldn't have even thought about looking after their mental health, but I think obviously in the last 18 months, it's definitely, people have taken time to reflect on themselves. But one piece of advice for someone who's on the verge or thinking about it, or what piece of advice would you give them?
Okay, yeah. I think in Ireland we're still slow to the table in regards mental health, mental well-being. But I kind of the best way I'd say it, I think, that people are kind of nervous of going. Like, I don't think I'll go for counselling for the rest of my life, even if I don't like need it, as Irish people would say, "Jizz, you need counselling." It's like I'll constantly go because I just think it makes me better, it makes me happier, it makes me improve different parts of my life. So it's like any you know, any of us that played sport all my life, I'll happily go to the physio at the drop of a hat if there's some niggle. Whereas people don't have the same attitude towards their mental health. To change that, because that's all it is. That is all it is. People are talking about it more. People aren't judging you as much as you might think for doing it. And like, even like whoever sees you going into a physiotherapy clinic, they won't see you going in if you're nervous in that way. So just treat your mind and body the same. There's no point in treating your hamstring injury any different than you do of some like issue that's really pressing in your mind. It's okay. It's mind and body. They're both interacting to give them at least equal space, if not more, to the mind.
Wow.
Yeah, that sounds good. Is there anything you think that there is a lot more awareness about mental health, but still, like, is there anything more the government can do to help people get help, if you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I suppose my own thinking from my recent experiences is that in school we're taught to be workers in the workforce. We're not taught to be humans. We're not taught to be content. We're not taught about life. Mm-hmm. That is an absolute disgrace as far as I'm concerned. We're not taught simple skills like meditation. You know, it's rare that you have an actual proper understanding of it, or even like self-soothing or relaxing, or how to deal with different emotions. Because in school, every child has went through something that like was hard and heavy, whether it's debt, whether it's abuse, whether it's addiction in the family, or even like, you know, simple things like a pet dying that's really impacted us, or something that you've seen that you shouldn't have seen, that, you know, like as a child, wow, I've seen this crazy thing that I wish I hadn't seen. Like every child has had something like that. So we don't as children, we don't have the resources to go, look, I need help. We don't know it. So I think there's really a need to implement something like a mental, physical well-being, like just everything, all like spirit, mind, body, nearly like a scouts version of that in schools. There should be, or there ought to be, something implemented that will give people a chance to actually learn to be human and not just a piece of the workforce. Because now we're going into college without any of these skills and just being like thrown into the world, and then it could be 5 years of damage before you realize, whoa, what was I after doing? And then you're kind of like, okay, now I have to claw back whatever I've done, or like this guilt or anxiety or shame or pain that I'm holding. And then it's like later in life that we're trying to like get better, rather than being able to do it in the moment. That's the ideal. Like rather than intervention, like prevention, that we know the skills to actually be able to look after ourselves, even as kids. Like, why not? We know how to do it in sport. We know how to stretch. We know how to go to ice baths after matches, even as young lads. So why not learn the same aspect in mental health, in mental well-being, for our spirit, for our mind? Why not? That's what I think should be changed.
Great point.
No, it's a great point. Yeah.
Great point. Look, I think, Eddie, it's definitely been a great insight anyway. to kind of see what you've done over the last number of years and kind of how you're able to kind of focus yourself and kind of unwind and I suppose kind of distance yourself from the likes of social media, the likes of just news and stuff like that, and actually pay attention to you and what you're doing, being present in the moment. Listen, just for myself anyway, I'd like to say a huge thank you for coming on, and I think Aaron's the same. Like, have you anything to add there?
No, that's perfect. And look, the tools we've discussed about, like, and how to manage the mental health, hopefully people can pick up a lesson from that, and you know, if they're struggling with anything, they can get in touch maybe, you know.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah. And what we'll do for anyone is we're going to link all of Eddie's websites and Instagram handles and email addresses and anything like that. And look, if this podcast helps one person, it's a win.
It's all about creating awareness. There's so much out there. You know, just don't be afraid to reach out to any organization, even to your doctor if needs be, and to find that balance in yourself rather than just leaving something on the long finger. Nip it in the bud. Nip it in the bud.
Nip it in the bud.
Yeah. Super. Eddie, thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Eddie.
Thanks for having me, lads. Appreciate it.
Much appreciated.
All the best.
Good luck.
All right. Cheers.
Cheers, lads. Bye-bye.